Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome folks, today the Hungry Gamer is back with another how to play video, and today we are talking about Flamecraft from Cardboard Alchemy, designed by Manny Vega with art by Sundara Tang. And I do apologize if I mispronounced any of those names. Now, before I get started, I do have to point out that this is just a prototype, and many of the components are going to change. And please make sure you turn on your Klingon subtitles, because if there are any kind of rules changes between the release of this video and the game finally coming to the mass market, that's where you will find those corrections. Now, additionally, you'll see that this shot seems like it's really far away, and that's because this board is a particularly long board. So for the basic setup, I'm going to be shooting this wide shot, but then after that, I'm going to bring it all down a little bit closer so we can see a little bit better. But this will help you get a good idea of where everything is on the board as we're going through this. So let's quickly talk about what we have here. Obviously, we have our player board. Over here, I have two scoring markers for a two-player game, which is what I'm going to show you how to set up. So I will put on the screen what the differences are for different player counts. We have our shop cards here, and you'll note that many of them say starter on the top, and you're going to want to take all of those and separate those from the rest of the stack. Once you've done that, you're going to want to shuffle up the rest of this stack and set it off to the side. And for the moment, we'll just set our starter cards right here. Then you're going to want to collect all of your different resource cubes. And just for reference, the green is leaf, the red is meat, the purple is potions, the gray is metal, the yellow is bread, and the white is crystal. And then finally, you want to pull out all of the gold coins. And just for your knowledge now, the gold coins are wild resources and can represent any of these resources out on the board. Next, you'll collect all of your fancy dragon cards. Those are the ones with this back right here. You want to give those a shuffle and then place them on the fountain like so. Then you're going to collect all of the artisan dragons. Those are the ones with this back here. And then you're going to want to take 3 matching sets of dragons out of this deck. I'll note that you're removing 2 because we're playing a 2-player game, and then I'll explain what we're using the 3rd set for in just a moment. 3 sets that look like this. Each one will have a purple potion dragon, a navy blue metal dragon, a red meat dragon, a green leaf dragon, a yellow bread dragon, and a blue crystal dragon out of the game. And with these 3 sets, one of them you're going to simply place right here to the side for just a moment. We'll talk about that in a minute. And these other 2 sets you're going to remove from the game, again, because I'm setting up a 2-player game. You can check the rule book and it will tell you how many sets you're supposed to take out, depending on player count, if any at all. Then you'll take the rest of these dragons and you'll set them right here in the park, like so. Then you're going to take that one set that you set aside. Again, you're going to give that a shuffle, and you're going to make sure that that set goes on top of your Artisan Dragon stack. Finally, you're going to take the enchantment cards, you'll give those a shuffle, and you're going to place those over on the other side of the board, with 5 of them dealt out, and the rest of them in a stack directly next to it, like so. Then you'll take your starting shop cards, and again, as a reminder, those are the ones that say starter on the back, and you're going to place them out into any of these shop spots along the board. And again, you're going to want to put 3 on each side, though exactly where you place them does not matter. So for our example, we'll set them up like so. Then you're going to take your Artisan Dragon deck, and you're going to deal 4 cards to each player. And as a reminder, we are playing with 2 players. And then you're going to deal 5 face out into the park like so. Finally, each player will be dealt 2 fancy dragon cards, and they will be able to look at them and pick the one that they would like to keep for now, and then discard the other one. And we'll talk about what fancy dragons do in just a little bit. But for now, just know that each player is going to start the game with 4 artisan dragons and 1 fancy dragon in their hand. Then each player will take their scoring marker, and they'll place it down here at the position where it says start, and then each player will take their dragon miniature, and for the moment, we'll just place them here in the park. And now we are ready to begin the game. And as I mentioned earlier, to better see what is going on, I'm going to zoom everything down a bit, but hopefully you now have an idea of what the board looks like in the macro, so as we talk about the details, you'll understand what's going on. Now let's move into what you're going to be doing on your turn. And the first thing that's going to happen every single turn is your dragon will visit a new shop. What that means is no matter what shop you've been in, you can't stay in that shop from turn to turn. So on the first turn, we will just pretend that our red dragon here is going to move to the Duncan Dragons like so. So once you visit a shop, you have a choice of two things that you're able to do. You can either gather or you can do an enchant. We're going to start out and talk about how the gather action works, then we'll come back and talk about how the enchant action works. And then before I move this card on, I'll just point out that at the end, if you wind up completely filling any of your shops, you're going to draw one new shop and you're going to place that anywhere that you want in the town, and I will explain how that works in just a moment. So as I said, our red dragon is visiting the Duncan Dragons. And so the first thing that happens is our red dragon is able to collect all of the resources that are listed on the shop, as well as on any dragons that are in the shop and any enchantments as well. So in this case, we simply have one bread. However, if the shop had already had one enchantment on it, then our red dragon, by visiting, would gain 2 bread. And you can see that because we have the 2 bread symbols there. And then let's point out, for example, if this bottom slot down here had already been filled with a meat dragon like so, then by visiting our red dragon would gain its 2 bread and 1 meat. But I'll explain how you get those there in just one moment. So for the moment, we will simply assume that there are no enchantments on the shop and no dragons in there, so we gain a single bread. The second step is optional, and you're allowed to place a dragon into the shop. And what this means is you're going to look at the dragons in your hand. And we're going to pretend that I have Smokey the meat dragon, Cinnabon the bread dragon, Elderberry the potion dragon, and Propane the metal dragon already in my hand. In order to determine which dragons we can place, we have to look down at the bottom. And you'll see there are these grayed out symbols that match the symbols of the resources. And what that's telling you is what kind of dragon you can place in each of these positions. So in this position here, you can only place a bread dragon. In this position, you can place a bread dragon or a meat dragon. In this position, you can place a meat dragon. And I'll point out that every single shop has different types of dragons that can go in those 3 spots. So if we look back at my hand, we'll see the only dragons I can place here are Smokey and Cinnabon. Now the next thing that we see down here are we have these full color icons. And what that's telling you is what the rewards you're going to gain for placing a dragon there. So if I were to place Cinnabon right here, you'll notice I'm covering up these 2 heart symbols. That would mean that I would be gaining 2 points for placing Cinnabon there. If I were to place Cinnabon right here in the middle, or if I were to have placed a meat dragon there, that means I gain a new fancy dragon. And in that instance, I would simply take the stack of fancy dragons and draw the top one from the stack and bring it into my hand. Then this last position here, in which I can only place Smoky my meat dragon, would earn me a single coin, which as a reminder is simply a wild resource. I want to point out here that you are limited to 7 of each type of resource. So at any time if gathering would take you above the 7 resources, you simply stop at 7 and gain no more. However, at the same time, there is no limit to the number of coins that you can have. And this is also an opportune time to tell you that you are limited to only 6 artisan dragons in your hand at any given time. Then once you have chosen which one of these spots you are going to take and you've collected your reward, then you have the ability to fire up 1 dragon in the shop. Now in this case, it's very simple as there's only one option. However, should this have been the case, then I would get to choose, do I want to fire up Cinnabon or do I want to fire up Smokey? And what that means is you'll be able to use the ability that they have written on the bottom of their card. And I will explain what all 6 types of dragons do in just one moment. But before that, the last step is perform shop ability. Now, all of the beginner shops have no shop abilities. However, as you can see here in the Bazaar, you have reveal and score one of your fancy dragon cards, which will also score at the end of the game. And all of the new other shops that you'll be placing out there have some kind of ability, and you get to activate that ability should you want to after you've fired up your chosen dragon. I will also point out that this particular shop has this symbol up there. Anytime you see that symbol, it means it is your choice. So by going to the Bazaar, I'd be able to select any of the 6 common resources, and I will also point out that down here, that means you can place any type of dragon in that slot. Then the last thing that you're going to do is if you placed a dragon that filled up a slot like so, then just before your turn ends, you would then go to the stack and draw a new shop, which you can then place anywhere that you want in the town. Now let's talk about the 6 different types of dragons and what their abilities are and what they mean. Now, I'm going to start here with the meat dragon. And that is because even though it says here, place another dragon and then gain any coins or hearts, that is no longer accurate. That has been changed. So what that means is if you fire up your meat dragon, you're then able to take another dragon from out of your hand and then place it in any open slot anywhere in the town. However, it is important to note that you must follow the rules listed on the shop. In other words, if I was attempting to place here in the Hello Nursery, I could only place a leaf dragon here, a leaf or bread dragon here, or a bread dragon here. And then after placing, you would then gain the rewards listed on the shop, which again, if we look at our Hello Nursery, that would mean by placing here, you would gain 2 points. Here you would gain 1 fancy dragon, and here you would gain 1 coin. And again, that is different from what is written on this particular card. That has been changed. Next, we'll look at Frostfire, our crystal dragon. And that's very simple. By firing up the crystal dragon, you gain 3 different items. And what that means is you can gain 3 resources of any type. However, all 3 of them must be different. So that means Frostfire could collect a medal, a potion, and a leaf, but could not collect 2 bread and 1 meat. I'll also note here that coins do not count as items, so you cannot collect coins with a crystal dragon. Next, we'll talk about the leaf dragons, which says give an item to another player and gain 2 victory points. So I could, if I wanted to fire up herb there, or perhaps it should be pronounced herb, I could give another player a leaf, I could give them a potion, or any other basic item. And in exchange for that, I would get 2 points. Next we have propane, which is gain 2 items of the shop or dragon type here. And for that, you'll see that here, the shop gives leaf. But if somehow propane was in this shop, which usually is not possible, but when I talk about potion dragons, you'll see how it is possible, this shop would also make metal. So if I were to fire up propane, I could get 2 more leaf, or I could get 2 metal. Next we have elderberry. And for elderberry, what you're going to do is you're going to swap the potion dragon that you've placed with another dragon somewhere in the town or in the park, and then use its fire up ability. So for that, we'll go here and look at the glassy knoll. And so, as you'll see, I could place a potion dragon here or here. So, if I wanted to, I could place elderberry right here, which would earn me a fancy dragon, or right here, which would earn me a coin. However, if I were to fire elderberry, I would then be able to take elderberry and then swap it with any dragon that's in the park or in another shop and bring it back and place it in the same place and then use its fire up ability. So that's a way that you can get around what the requirements are on each individual shop. So now I could have a meat dragon in this position because it originally started as a potion dragon. And then next we have our bread dragons. And that is very simple. If you fire up a bread dragon, you're able to take 1 dragon that is face up in the park or from the top of the deck and place it in your hand. Now let's talk about enchanting a shop, which, if you remember, is the second option you have when you visit a shop. So if our red dragon visited the Draco Bell, I could then look over on the side of the board at all the different enchantments. And you're going to look for any that have a matching shop type. So in this case, in the Draco Bell, we're looking for matching meat symbols, which, in our case, we'll pretend are both smoked gorgon and displacer beef. And what you have in the center is you have what is required to enchant the shop. So in this case, to add displacer beef to the shop, I would need to have 2 metal and 3 potions. And just as a reminder, you can always substitute coins for any item at a 1-to-1 basis. Or if I wanted to do the smoked gorgon, I would have to have pairs of metal and bread. And then for each pair that I have, I would gain more and more of a reward for them. So let's talk about how that works. For the displacer beef, I would simply pay that, and then down here it tells me my reward. I would get 4 points, and I'd be allowed to claim a dragon from the park. Again, that's either the face-up dragon or from the top of the deck. For the smoked gorgon, if I were to simply use 1 bread and 1 metal, I would be able to enchant the shop, which would make the shop more powerful later on, but I would gain no points. If I were to use 2 of each, I would gain 2 points, 3 of each, 4 points, 4 of each, 8 points. Then, once that's done, you would place the enchantment on the shop, and I should point out here that you are never allowed to have more than 3 enchantment on any given shop. Then after you've placed the enchantment, you are then allowed to fire up all the dragons currently in the shop. So in this case, I could fire Smoky and Coal, and I could do that in whatever order I wanted. Then once that's done, again, just like as when you gathered, you would then check to make sure that you have not completely filled the shop. And if you had filled the shop, you would then draw a new shop from the top of the deck and place it somewhere in the town. The last thing you would do is you would replace any slots that have been left open by playing cards. So that might be an empty slot on your enchantment track, or an empty space in the park where the dragons are. And then as a reminder, Should any of those decks run out of cards, then every single player, including the one that played the last card, will get one more turn, and then you'll total up your points. Now, the last thing we need to talk about are the fancy dragons and how they work. Now, you will find that there are two different types of fancy dragons that you can come across during the game. You have the ones that just have the fancy dragon symbol in the top right, and the ones that also have the exclamation mark. Now, what this is telling you is when you are able to score them. All the fancy dragons that have just this symbol in the top right are scored at the end of the game, and each one will tell you exactly how they score. For example, this one right here will score you 5 points if you have both a crystal dragon and a potion dragon in your hand at the end of the game. Now, this other one here is one that is scored during the game. So if on your turn you can accomplish the goal on the bottom, you'll get the points. In this case, on my turn, if I happen to have 5 potion resources, I can turn those in and immediately score 5 points. I would then place this dragon down on the table face up, just to mark that it has already been scored. Now let's talk about how scoring works. To start with, each player will have a set number of points that they have earned during the game based on taking positions in shops, as well as accomplishing those fancy dragon quests that can be turned in during the middle of the game. So for the sake of argument, we will say that we have finished with 32 points for red and 29 points for green. The next thing that happens is each player will turn in any of their coins for 1 point each. So for the sake of argument, we will say that red has a single coin, giving them 33 points, while green has 4 coins, also giving them 33 points, and now we have a tied game. Then each player will turn in their fancy dragon in-game scoring cards. So for the sake of argument, we will assume that green has 2 fancy dragons that they are able to score at the end of the game. The first one is Rainbow, and Rainbow says 2 points for each unique dragon that you have in your hand. If this was green's hand, you'll see that they have 2 leaf dragons, 1 meat dragon, and 1 metal dragon. That means they have 3 unique dragon types, so that would earn them 6 points. 2 points for the metal dragon, 2 points for the leaf dragon, 2 points for the meat dragon, thus giving them 39 points. And then we have their second one, which is Venti. And for Venti, it says if the town has at least 4 potion dragons in play, you gain 1 point for each one, and we'll pretend that there are 5 potion dragons out in the town, which will give green 5 more points, for a total of 44 points. And then for red, we'll assume that they have these 2 fancy dragons. And the first one is just like the potion dragon one, except this time it's for metal dragons, and we'll assume that there are exactly 4 metal dragons in the town, so therefore, for soot, there would be 4 points gained for red. And then the other one here is gain 5 points if you have both a meat dragon and a bread dragon in your hand. And luckily for red, red does, so red gains 5 more points. And then that would be the end of our scoring. So in this case, congratulations to green for winning 44 to 42. So there you have it, folks. That is how to play Flamecraft. As always, if you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments. Please make sure, if you're interested in what my thoughts are on this game, you can find my preview through a link in the description, and you can also find a 2-player playthrough in the description as well. As always, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.